Today you're going to be practicing drawing an eye, first in pencil, and then you're going to be shading it in pen to give it value and depth. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to draw the eye, and I want you to look at how big it is. I'm in a sketchbook turned sideways. We want this to be big enough so that when we start to shade it, it will be easier. So the top arc, the bottom, we're going to pull up for the tear duct, and then we'll go back down and make sort of a gentle arc pulling up. It's a general shape of an eye. Next, we're going to do the iris. Now remember that the iris is a circle, is a true circle, and we're looking at how much of the eye our iris takes up. We're going to draw that full circle. We want to have some sclera or white of the eye on either side, but not too much. We don't want to have more sclera than there is iris. This is going to be where my tear duct sits. And remember, we're going to pull this down the middle. We're dividing this circle in half. We're going to divide it in half this way. So I'm looking at the distance of the circle, not from here to the top of the lid. I'm treating the circle as a whole. And then I am going to put the pupil here. So the pupil is going to appear a lot closer to this upper part of the eye, but that is because it's centered within the iris itself. Okay. Okay, next I'm going to put my highlight onto there. And I'm going to erase out inside of there. And I'm going to put my lid line, which is going to go close to the eye here, and then gradually get larger. Okay, now I'm going to start with my pen from this point forward. So I'm going to get my micron pen. You can use an ultra fine Sharpie if you don't have your micron, but the micron I think is going to be easier. It actually shades better. And I'm going to trace over my pencil. Okay, now I'm also going to put on my eyebrow. The eyebrow goes up from this middle point, so I want to leave some gap. I'm going to go about there, and then my eyebrow is going to have a slight arch. And then from the corner of my eye, I'm going to pull a guideline out. That's where my eyebrow is going to pull down to. You should have room in between your lid line and your eyebrow. And then here, the hair for my eyebrow is going to be going up, then angling as it goes out. Here, it's turning in a down. Okay, so I'm going to put on my eyebrow, and again, I'm always putting down the tip of my micron or my pen. You can even do this actually, a ballpoint pen. And I'm layering these lines together as they go out. They're laying flatter, but I always put it down and then pull up. And then as I'm coming out here, it's angling in a down. And then I can go back through and just layer for thickness where I want it to be heavier. I'm going to erase away my pencil. I'm going to erase away my pencil in here as well. Probably magic rub's a better idea for that. Okay, so now we're going to start working the value. Everything appears very flat. I'm going to start in, let's establish the tear duct. I'm going to actually start in the iris. So I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to pull curved lines first to darken this outer edge, and I'm using kind of a light pressure, and I'm kind of like almost doing like a sketched line. Hold on a second, around this. So I'm curving around, and now I'm going to start doing like those heavier, darker edges as it's pulling in from the edge. So these are like those little spiky edges. Pulling in from this edge. Okay. And I do want the edge to be darker. No matter what, I want that edge out here to be darker. And by making it darker, I'm just layering the lines heavier. Inside this part of the eye is going to be a true blackout. So I'm actually going to pull hatched lines going one way, then I'm going to cross hatch the other, making sure that I leave my highlighted triangle around. And if it's not dark enough, which I want to pull this to almost like a true black, I'm going to pull vertical lines as well. Now, outside of this, I'm going to do a small burst that's going to be layered a little bit tighter. And then I'm going to start pulling from the inside out to the edge. So I'm bursting from my circle out to the edge. And I'm going to do it several times around, making sure that my edge always stays darker. And I'm using a really kind of light pressure right now. Just building up value, but not as dark as this edge. If anything, it starts getting as dark as this edge, I'm going to lighter pressure. I want to keep this edge dark. Okay. I'm going to do the burst that I see around a lot of people's pupils. Put that in here, and it's just a sort of zigzag. Does eventually meet up with itself here. And I'm going to leave that for now. Now, the inside edge of our eye here. So I'm like lightly sort of following this curve. And then what I'm doing is putting my pen down and picking it up. So I'm going to pull out from this inside part here. And in the corner, I'm layering more as it comes out of the eye. I'm going to lighten the pressure. And then I'm going to pull this direction across. And in the corner, it's tight. And as it comes out, I will loosen the pressure. So I've got cross-hatching tighter here where the lines are closer together, and then they're looser apart. On this end, I'm going to go into here. I'm going to go tight in this corner, and I'm going to put my pen down and lift up as I push out. Okay? And then I'm going to cross-hatch where I'm going to pull tight and as I come out of here, I'm loosening. And I'm keeping everything rounded. So here, rounded, 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 rounded. Okay. Now, up top here, I'm going to sort of use lines where I'm scribbling, but I'm actually like picking my pen up, but I'm layering right here to be heavier because it will have a cast shadow at the top from the lashes and from being tucked under. So top edge, darker underneath. And then down here, I'm going to put on my water line. I haven't done that yet. So I'm going to come away from this edge of the eye just a little bit, and I'm going to put on where my lower lashes are going to be attached. Okay, now I want to make the lid line or the fold darker. So I'm going on there, and I'm just sort of scribbling to darken this in. I'm just following it. And so it's like darkest on that line, and then I'm sort of like leaving the line, but I'm picking up my pen and going lighter and not as close. And then I'm going to do the lid here, and I'm going to do these like rounded shaped sort of shading where it's curving, and then I'm going to cross hatch against it. Light, light, light. So I'm going to use this pen to shade my lid. Light, light, light. I'm following this curve. That's telling me it's rounded. And in here, I'm really light with the pen, barely any pressure. And I'm going to start building up some light value. First, I'm going to hatch on the underside of this. I'm going to pull this in a little bit more. It should be right up from there. Okay, so I'm going to go light, and I'm just pulling light lines, and they're curved. I'm never letting anything become completely straight, but I'm trying to just give this some value. It's going to be darker here in the middle, so I'm going to cross hatch against it here, and I'm not trying to build perfect grids. I'm like putting my pen down and just pulling sort of random lines, but they're going to be tighter and darker here because I'm layering more. And then I'm going to go out and they'll be lighter. And I'm never going to just like absolutely stop to nothing till I get out. So out here, there's a dent that usually sits right above this line. Cross hatch there a little tighter. And then I'm letting it fade out. So I can cross hatch multiple ways if I need an area to be darker. Like I want this inner part to be darker. This would technically be like catching a shadow from the side of the nose. And I'm going to do the same thing on this underside here. Light, light pressure. So I'm going to build up where this socket would be sitting here. Light, light pressure. Curve, curve, curve. You should be watching the direction of my pen. I'm sort of trying to mimic that direction. Pocket is deeper, so I'm going to layer more lines. Now, side here, this is our tear duct. It's going to be darker on the edges and fading a little bit lighter as it comes in. Anytime we're building heavier areas, we're just layering more lines tight together. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on lashes. This seemed to be the biggest problematic area when I look at students doing lashes for the first time. And here's what we're going for. So when we look at this, we're going for like that the lashes here are pulling up and they have a slight hooked curve, and as they go out, they're laying flatter. They're still hooking though, so they're not like straight, but they're hooking and going up, hooking, hooking. But look how much this lays this way versus the lashes that are here that are up. So they're not poking straight up, and they're tapering to small when they get to here. So I'm going to fold this, and we're going to use this sort of as our model. Let's see if I can get both on the screen. Okay, make it about this way. So I'm going to draw with this right next to it. And some people do this. We're going to try this today. Some people do this thing where they do these like scalloped edges here. So follow what I'm doing. Scalloped edges. You can watch first, and if you need to rewind, you can. So I'm doing like these cupped scallops, cup, 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 and then off of the end of each one, I'm going to put a lash. So I'm on my cup scallop here, and then I'm going to put a lash. And the lashes out on this outer edge of our eye are much longer. And first I'm just doing big ones to map out where we're going. Now, as we come to this inner part of our eye, this is where we're going to see that directional change. So when I was drawing like a V in class, this is our curve where we're sort of starting to go that other direction. Here the lashes are going to get much smaller, and they're tapering to very short in the corner, so they're never interfering with the tear duct. So here I'm going to stop. Okay, so this is our basic. Now I'm going to do something sort of from the bottom. Here we're lashing still out. I'm going to do my change in direction here. And then I'm going to put my lashes from this water line as they go out. They're longer on the outer edge, just like the top. And as they come to the inner edge, they're smaller. Now, we can make this look more realistic by doing things like where they clump together, where we have some smaller, and we don't want to get into doing like big, small, big, small. We're going to let them overlap each other. And okay, now let's focus on these. Because if we look from the corner of this eye, we still have lashes that pull down here and go out. So we want to make sure that we are going down low enough. And now I'm going to start adding in some others. I'm going to add in some short ones, some long ones. I'm going to let them all come from this bottom line where I did that scalloped edge. And I'm mixing them up. And I'm slowing the pen down, and I'm going to give a little bit more pressure so that they're standing out on top of my shaded lid beneath, okay? We can let some of them look like they cross each other, because in their natural state, they're not going to all be sitting perfectly next to each other. And we're going to let some be stuck together. Okay. All right, last thing. Let's give it one more cast shadow across here where our lashes are above. So I'm just lightly shading over this, and I'm going to come back the other way. Give it a cast shadow. I'm curving around my eye. Showing the This is rounded. Not pulling a full line at any one point, just keeping it light. Making sure the edge stays dark. And it's just a matter of building, like I'm returning and building up areas that I feel need to be darker. And I'm definitely using this as my example for where I'm looking for value. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you are with the pen and with making the marks. I'm also going to lightly shade across this waterline here, just a little bit at the back end and a little bit at this front end, because it would be catching some shadow from the lashes above. But again, I don't want to lose that line completely. I'm going to give a little bit of value right here. So just light pressure with this pen, giving a little bit of value as it's tucking into this fold down here. And that is it for today. So you can, at this point, photograph and submit your work.